ChatGPT can write essays, code apps, even legal documents. When I asked it to draft a trust, it made mistakes that could destroy a family. On the surface, it looked legit. All the right legal-sounding words, like a lawyer wrote it. But I'm an estate planning attorney. I've drafted thousands of these, and I can tell you, this thing is a train wreck waiting to happen. Today, I'll show you the 3 biggest mistakes this AI made. Mistakes that could have cost my family everything, and what a real trust is supposed to do. I get asked all the time, will AI replace lawyers? And look, tools like ChatGPT are seriously powerful. They can write your kids' essays, code a website, and now they supposedly can draft legal documents. So I put it to the test. I gave it a simple prompt: create a standard revocable living trust. The result was alarming. It was the perfect illusion of security. It looked right, it felt right, but it was a house of cards. The truth is, these AI-generated documents are loaded with hidden flaws you'd never spot until it's too late. These aren't just typos, they're critical errors that can invalidate your entire plan, drag your family into court, and leave your assets totally unprotected. We're going to dissect this AI trust and expose the 3 biggest mistakes it made. Here's where the wheels really come off. And I'm not just going to point them out, I'm going to explain why they're such a huge deal and what should have been there instead. Mistake number 1, no plan for incapacity. This is one of the biggest jobs of a living trust, and ChatGPT left it out completely. Its trust had no real detailed plan for what happens if I become incapacitated. This isn't just theory. I've seen families live this nightmare. Let me show you how it plays out. Here's the thing. One of the most important jobs of a living trust is protecting you while you're still alive. It's not just about what happens after you die. A properly drafted trust names a successor trustee, someone you choose to step in and manage your finances if you're in an accident or illness and can't make decisions for yourself. That person can pay your bills, manage your investments, and keep your life running, all without ever setting foot in a courtroom. ChatGPT's document mentioned a successor trustee, but here's the kicker. It gave 0 detail on how that transfer of power actually happens. It didn't even define what incapacity means. Is that when one doctor says so? 2? Do they have to be specialists? Without clear rules, it's a recipe for family fights. Let me give you a real-world example. Bob used a DIY trust online that was just as vague as this ChatGPT one. Then Bob had a major stroke. He was alive but couldn't communicate. His daughter Susan was the successor trustee and needed money from his bank account to pay his medical bills. The bank refused. Why? Because the trust didn't have a clear mechanical way to prove Bob was incapacitated. The bank, terrified of being sued, demanded a court order. So Susan had to hire a lawyer and start a painful, public, and expensive court process called conservatorship. She had to stand in front of a judge and prove her dad was incompetent. It took months, cost thousands of dollars, and all the while the bills piled up. This is the exact nightmare a trust is supposed to avoid. And here's the sad part. A professional trust fixes this with just one simple line. Something like, incapacity will be determined by the written confirmation of 2 licensed physicians. That single sentence would have let Susan walk into the bank with 2 letters and get immediate access to the funds. ChatGPT completely missed this because it's a word bot, not a lawyer. It spit out boilerplate text without any understanding of the real-world problems families face. It gave me a car, but it forgot the steering wheel, and the second you try to use it, you're headed straight for a wall. Mistake number 2, a one-size-fits-all trust. This is where ChatGPT ignores state-specific laws and it can blow up your plan. The ChatGPT trust was completely generic, a one-size-fits-all template that ignored the specific laws of my state. And this isn't unique to AI. It's the same classic mistake cheap online document mills make all the time. Here's the deal. In the US, a state law isn't uniform. A trust that works perfectly in California could be totally invalid in Texas or Florida. Some states have very specific rules about how a trust must be signed and witnesses. Others have completely different rules for married couples, especially when it comes to community property. But an AI doesn't know where you live. It just scrapes text from all over the internet and mashes together conflicting rules, or worse, ignores them entirely. Let me show you how this plays out. Imagine the trust was supposed to hold my house. My state might require the deed transfer to be notarized and signed in front of 2 witnesses. But if I followed ChatGPT's vague instructions and just signed in front of a single notary, that transfer could be invalid, which means the house was never actually in the trust. And when I die, my family is right back in probate court, the exact expensive public mess the trust was supposed to avoid. And it gets even uglier when you add family dynamics. Think about a couple, Sarah and Tom, who moved from New York, a common law state, to Arizona, a community property state. They had a generic trust they got online. When Tom passed away, a massive legal fight broke out between Sarah and Tom's kids from his first marriage over what was his and what was theirs together. The trust was so vague it was useless, sparking years of litigation that tore the family apart and burned through their inheritance. Here's the point. A human lawyer would have known about their move and immediately updated their plan. ChatGPT can't ask those questions. It doesn't know you moved. It doesn't know you have a blended family. It's a text generator, not a counselor. Using a generic trust is like trying to open your front door with a key that wasn't cut for your lock. It might slide in, but it will never turn. And by the way, if you're realizing your plan might have gaps like this, I put a link below for a free estate planning guide. Don't wait until it's too late. Mistake number 3, the empty box problem. This is the funding issue that makes most DIY trusts worthless. The ChatGPT trust barely mentioned the most critical step of all, funding the trust. Creating the trust document is just step 1. It does nothing until you actually put your assets into it. The process of retitling your house, your bank accounts, and your investments into the name of the trust is called funding. If you sign a trust but never fund it, you've basically done nothing. You just have an expensive piece of paper. Think of it this way. A trust is an empty box until you put your assets into it. It's like building a fireproof safe, then leaving your valuables on the kitchen table. ChatGPT's trust made a vague reference to funding but gave no clear instructions. No step-by-step for retitling a house, no explanation of how to change ownership of a bank account, and no warning that certain assets, like IRAs and 401ks, have special rules and shouldn't be retitled at all. In those cases, the trust might be named as a beneficiary, a decision with massive tax consequences you absolutely need professional advice on. And this right here is the number 1 reason DIY plans fail. People sign the document, stick it in a drawer, and think they're protected. Let me give you a real-world example. Frank proudly created his own trust online to save money. He told his kids, everything's taken care of, no probate for us. But when Frank passed away, his kids discovered the awful truth. Nothing was actually in it. The house, the bank accounts, the investments, all still in Frank's name. Because his assets weren't funded into the trust, every single one had to go through probate. The exact nightmare Frank thought he'd avoided became his family's reality. A real attorney doesn't just hand you a stack of papers. They walk you through the funding process to make sure the job gets finished. ChatGPT, it gives you an empty box and wishes you good luck. Here's the simple reason this technology misses what matters most. It's great at predicting the next word, but do you really want your family's future decided by autocomplete? Here's the truth. ChatGPT is a parrot, not a lawyer. It's trained to recognize patterns in text and predict the next word in a sentence. That's it. It's amazing at sounding human, but it has zero real-world experience, no judgment, and it can't ask you the clarifying questions that make or break an estate plan. And that's the problem. Estate planning isn't just about filling out a form. It's a deep, personal process. It's about understanding your family dynamics, navigating tricky relationships, and protecting the people you love from a complicated legal system. Think about it. An AI can't sit down with you and ask, who should raise your kids if something happens? It can't warn you about leaving money outright to a child with special needs. It won't tell you if one of your heirs has money problems and needs protection from creditors. And it definitely can't strategize how to minimize taxes or avoid probate. This is where human expertise is and always will be irreplaceable. But here's the good news. Protecting your family the right way doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to figure it out alone. Click the link in the description for a free estate planning guide. You can look for the cracks in your plan and make sure it actually works before those cracks turn into a flood. And if you found this video helpful, hit the subscribe button. I post new videos all the time that break down complex legal issues into simple steps so you can protect your family and your legacy with confidence. We just saw 3 fatal flaws in its trust. No real plan for incapacity, ignoring state-specific laws, and 0 instructions for funding. Any one of those mistakes could blow up your estate plan. Here's the bottom line. AI can write words, but it can't understand your family, your values, or your state's laws. Estate planning isn't just about documents, it's about people. By the way, this video here is what YouTube thinks you should be watching next, so hopefully you'll check it out. Remember, your estate plan should be your family's safety net, not a gamble with an algorithm.